In the last video, we learned how to send system-exclusive messages from Ableton to the core Kronos. However, we only managed to send a single value by typing a message. Our primitive Max for Live device lacked any user interface controls. In this video, we will learn how to create the UI controls we need, like sliders and knobs, to send Sysex without having to manually type each message. To create our UI controls, we would use Max for Live specific objects. For my use case, I found 5 UI objects of interest. They are dial, menu, nbox, text, and slider. The complete list of Max for Live specific objects can be found here. To add a Max for Live specific object, we double-click in the Max canvas and type live dot followed by the name of the object. For example, live.dial will create a dial control. To edit a Max for Live specific object, we open the inspector and modify the multitude of properties to suit our needs. Values of the UI controls can be displayed as a number range or as text strings. For example, a parameter might have a range between 0 to 127 or -50 to +50. On the other hand, a toggle type parameter might have on and off values. A menu might have any number of selectable options presented as text, like the oscillator waveform parameter from the previous video. Regardless of how we present the values of the controls visually, the values they send out are always numbers. That's in our best interest, since we would like to achieve consistency. So, a toggle parameter might display on and off, but under the hood, it would send values of 0 and 1. A menu might display 8 text string options, but under the hood, it would send a range between 0 and 7. I will be working with the oscillator 1 level parameter from the AL1 synth of the Kronos. This can be found at EXI1 page 43 oscillator pitch mixer. We notice the parameter has a range between 0 and 99. Our goal is to create a live.dial Max for Live specific object and then edit its properties in the inspector to make it look and act as the Kronos dial. Create a new Max for Live MIDI effect. Open it and delete all objects above the device vertical limit. Double-click on the Max canvas to create a new object. Type live.dial and press enter. With the dial object selected, open the inspector. I like to make sure I set the following 7 inspector properties on any UI control I create. Appearance, including presentation, checked. We need this to ensure we will see the object in our Max for Live device. Behavior enabled, checked. If this is disabled, we can't interact with the control. Behavior ignore click, unchecked. We want to make sure we can click it. Parameter visible to mapping, checked. To enable mapping the control. Parameter initial enabled, checked. To provide an initial or default value. Parameter exponent 1 to make sure values are changing on a linear scale. Parameter visibility automated and stored to make sure we can store and automate the control within Ableton. The following inspector properties are specific to this dial control, oscillator 1 level. Appearance, display style, vertical. Parameter long name A36 oscillator 1 level. Parameter short name O1. Parameter type int. Parameter range enum 0 space 99. Parameter initial value 99. Parameter unit style int. Parameter steps 100. Our live.dial control now behaves exactly like the oscillator 1 level parameter on the Kronos AL1 synthesizer. If we create a print object, we will verify the dial sends out its number values. Let's repeat the same process with the live.menu object. I will be working with the oscillator1 waveform parameter of the Kronos AL1. This can be found at EXI1 page 41 oscillator pitch, oscillator basic. We notice the parameter has a range between 0 and 7 displayed as text values. Our goal is to create a live.menu max for live specific object and then edit its properties in the inspector to make it look and act as the Kronos menu. Double-click on the max canvas to create a new object. Type live.menu and press enter. With the menu object selected, open the inspector. Set the 7 common inspector properties as we did for the dial object, including presentation, enabled, ignore click, visible to mapping, initial enable, exponent, and parameter visibility. The following inspector properties are specific to this menu control, oscillator1 waveform. Appearance display LCD. Parameter long name A1 oscillator waveform. Parameter short name A1 oscillator waveform. Parameter type enum. Parameter range enum. I'm typing all the values the same way that they are in the Core Kronos AL1 parameter. Parameter initial value 2. Parameter unit style native type. Parameter steps 8. Our live.menu control now behaves exactly like the oscillator1 waveform parameter on the Kronos AL1 synthesizer. If we create a print object, we will verify the menu sends out its number values. Let's repeat the same process with a live.nbox object. I will be working with the oscillator1 initial phase parameter of the Kronos AL1. This can be found at EXI1 page 41 oscillator pitch, oscillator basic. We notice the parameter has a range between -180 and 181, with value 181 displayed as a text string random. Our goal is to create a live.numbox max for live specific object and then edit its properties in the inspector to make it look and act as the Kronos numbox. Double-click on the max canvas to create a new object. Type live.numbox and press enter. With the numbox object selected, open the inspector. Set the 7 common inspector properties as we did for the other objects. The following inspector properties are specific to this menu control, oscillator1 initial phase. Display style bipolar. Long name A2 oscillator1 initial phase. Short name A2 oscillator1 initial phase. Parameter type enum. Parameter range enum. I'm entering each value from -180 to +180 separated by spaces, and I'm also putting random for the value that represents 181. Parameter initial value 180. That's because enums start at 0, so this 180 corresponds to a value of 0. Parameter unit style custom. Parameter steps 362. Our live.numbox control now behaves exactly like the oscillator1 initial phase parameter on the Kronos AL1 synthesizer. If we create a print object, we will verify the menu sends out its number values. Let's repeat the same process with a live.text object. I will be working with the portamento enable parameter of the Kronos AL1. This can be found at EXI1 page 44 oscillator pitch, pitch common. We notice the parameter has a range between 0 and 1, so it will be a toggle. Our goal is to create a live.txt max for live specific object and then edit its properties in the inspector to make it look and act as the Chronos enabled toggle. Double click on the max canvas to create a new object. Type live.txt and press enter. With the text object selected, open the inspector. Set the 7 common inspector properties as we did for the other objects, including presentation, enabled, ignore click, visible to mapping, initial enable, exponent, parameter visibility. The following inspector properties are specific to this toggle control. Enabled toggle. Appearance display style default. Parameter long name A77 enable. Parameter short name A77 enable. Parameter type int. Parameter range enum 0 space 1. Parameter initial value 0. Parameter unit style native type. Parameter steps 2 usually, but we will leave it at 0. We have a few more properties to set under the value category. Value mode toggle. Value automation off label val1. Value automation on label val2. Value text off label off. Value text on label on. Our live.txt control now behaves exactly like the enable toggle parameter on the Chronos AL1 synthesizer. If we create a print object, we will verify the text object sends out its number values. Let's repeat the same process with the live.slider object. I will be working with the amp level parameter of the Chronos AL1. This can be found at EXI1, page 6.1, amp driver. We notice the parameter has a range between 0 and 127. Our goal is to create a live.slider max for live specific object and then edit its properties in the inspector to make it look and act as the Chronos amp level slider. Double click on the max canvas to create a new object. Type live.slider and press enter. With the slider object selected, open the inspector. Set the 7 common inspector properties as we did for the other objects. The following inspector properties are specific to this slider control. Amp level. Appearance orientation vertical. Parameter long name A213 amp level. Parameter short name amp level. Parameter type int. Parameter range enum 0 space 127. Parameter initial value 127. Parameter unit style int. Parameter steps 128. Our live.slider control now behaves exactly like the amp level parameter on the Chronos AL1 synthesizer. Now that we have our UI controls, we can use the max print object to check what values are being sent out by the UI controls when we change their values. As mentioned in a previous slide, our max for live specific objects send out number values, usually in a user-defined range. The exception is enums, which always start their range at 0. Congratulations! You learned how to create max for live specific objects to match the display style of the parameters in your physical hardware. Save your max for live device in your user library for future use. Thanks for watching. In the next video, we will learn how to use our max for live specific objects to send data to the Chronos or any other Sysex capable hardware. We will first define the problem, then work out the formulas on a Google Sheet, and finally transfer those formulas into max objects. Catch you in the next one.